a lot of the dudes in the group are doing things they never thought. And here's a kicker. Nobody had to become a millionaire to do these things. Nobody had to change their life significantly to do these things. It has been significantly life changing, but it's like, hey, I'm going to be intentional about taking my kid on a date and see what happens.
Welcome to the show, Disruptors. I'm your host, Aaron Hale, and this is Point of Impact. You know that saying, iron sharpens iron. When you put talented minds together, the effects can be orders of magnitude incredible. I got a great show for you today because our guests are examples of just kind of an association. David Gutierrez and Stu Grazier are longtime friends and individually incredible men, right? With strong family values and strong faith in God, family men, servicemen. But together, their friendship elevated their effect on the world in exponential ways. Known each other since their days in the Navy Academy, and their friendship has grown beyond the superficial social media kind of friendship to something deeper, the truer sense of the meaning. Their kind of conversations involve talking about their goals. They're talking about their achievements and their challenges through life. When they're talking about maintaining a healthy lifestyle, being husbands and fathers, business, and just kicking back and having some fun. In their discussions, they hold their feet to the fire and hold each other accountable when the other's slipping. And they raise each other up and celebrate their accomplishments. That's friendship in the truest sense. And that's what these two men are. They, since becoming friends, have moved their families closer together, went into business and real estate together, started a podcast, and have also opened up that circle of achievement, accomplishment, influence, and accountability with a mastermind called the Kinetic Man. So if you're a man looking to build an abundant life full of purpose and adventure and strong relationships, they're looking for you. And today we talk about a lot of the issues that face today's modern man. Before we get to it, I want to ask you to leave an impact and pay it forward. If you're listening to the show on one of the platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, I want you to give the show 5 stars. Make sure you're following or subscribed, and please leave a review. That goes a long way to showing the platforms that this is a show worth listening to and putting it out to a wider audience. And if you're watching it on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe to the show. Leave the episode a thumbs up and maybe a comment. I'll get back to you. And whatever platform you're on, go a step further and share the episode with others in your circle. You never know. Somebody is somewhere in your circle, in your sphere of influence. There's somebody looking for connection. There's somebody looking for that connection to men like David and Stu, and a community like the Kinetic Man. And you could be that connector. You could be the one that makes an impact in somebody's life just by sharing it. So share the link on social media, but beyond that, send the link in a text to 2 or 3 men you think would benefit from this episode. That's being the point of impact. Without further ado, my conversation with Kinetic Men, Stu Grazier and David Gutierrez. David and Stu, thank you so much for joining me on Point of Impact.
Hey, thank you for having us, Aaron. We've been excited about joining you. And, I want to make one thing I didn't say before we hit record. You very graciously highlighted that Stu's looking good today, and I did question that, but you also did mention it may be a little bit hard to distinguish, between who we are. And I'll just tell you the deep, handsome sounding voice, David, kind of the higher pitched, a little bit squeaky, squeaky voice. That'll be a good indicator that that's Stu talking. I just want to make that clear. But also, we're super excited to join you, and we've had you on the podcast. Love that episode, and so just happy to be here.
Guys, I appreciate the clues as to who's who, and also knowing, having known you more or less for a few years now, and of course being big fans of your podcast. It's There's a lot of personality there between the two of you. I know you guys, uh, but not just co-hosts of the podcast and mastermind co-founders, but you also got uh, started business turnkey investment storehouse 310, and even before then, uh, your academy BFFs way back to college days and service. Tell you what, why don't we kind of start there? How did the
Oh,
friendship
I
begin?
feel like I should start with like just a really, really low voice. This is
Not
Stuart,
real voice,
and
just for all your listeners.
it's a way deeper,
I'm the
sexier
manly
voice.
voice in this duo.
That's right. No, this Aaron, this is fun, man. So David and I go back a long ways. We actually were introduced in the summer before freshman year at the Naval Academy, and we got paired up as roommates. We just lined up, both having last names of G's, Grazier and Gutierrez. And interestingly enough, we stayed roommates for all 4 years at the Naval Academy. We um, we became really friends right away, and it's not normal to actually stay roommates for all 4 years at the Naval Academy, but somehow we on us, and he knew that there was going to be some future stuff happening between the two of us. We ended up graduating, and we kind of went our separate ways. And about the 15-year mark in, so I had gone pilot. I flew helicopters, and then transitioned to airplanes, Boeing 737s. And David went into Intel cryptology world. And at the 15-year mark, we both got stationed together in Italy, Naples, Italy. We both were on the staff there. I know you know Italy well,
Hmm.
Aaron. But we were stationed there, and we did life together. We traveled together. We worked together. We worked out together. We exercised, and we talked a lot about what was next after the military. We both had been investing in real estate separately, and we started talking about what it would look like to go into business together after the Navy. And that just kind of started the conversations of what do we want to do, where do we want to live, what do we want our life to look like. And it was just a really fun conversation. And that, fast forward to years later, we ended up deciding to start a real estate business. You alluded to Storehouse 310 Ventures, which was a turnkey real estate company hubbed out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. There's an interesting story just to that alone, and maybe David can go into that a little bit more on the story of how Storehouse 310 Ventures got started.
I'm curious. When were you guys in Naples?
Was it 2000? I was there 10. No, sorry. I got there in 14. I believe I left in 16. Is that about right?
Yeah, that's about right. 14. I was there 14 to
No, that was
17. Yep.
well after I was there. I was there at the beginning of my career in 2000 2004 timeframe. But yeah, that was a fantastic tour, and loved to having that launch pad for the rest of Europe and the Mediterranean. It was fantastic. So you started or rekindled the freshman the that friendship, and Was it but there like that time in Italy that you realized that you guys were going to be heterosexual life partners and
Yeah, yeah. So,
uh,
we didn't know. I mean, I had a strong sense that Stu is going to be my work wife, but I didn't know the extent to which that would be the case. That would be the scenario. So, yeah, it was. It's interesting too, Aaron. One of the things that the friendship's always been strong, but one of the things that we always preach is a strong friendship should not be the foundation or the basis necessarily of a business partnership, right? Like it needs to go a lot deeper. The
mhm,
conversations have to happen. And Stu alluded to my experience in Milwaukee. It was not a very good experience because the people that I had chosen to partner with turned out to be, quite frankly, just dishonest, and they were doing things that were illegal. And I had trusted them, and so, but I count that as a blessing now, because really that was, you talk about a springboard. That was a springboard for Stu and I to decide to do our own business, right? And the premise, after we decided, we had a lot of hard conversations, hours of conversations about, hey, what are our core values? What happens if we lose money? And just a bunch of different things we talked about that we worked through before ever making doing a deal. But there was also, we talked about the partnership. We talked about what we'd want to do, and effectively, we decided that as best friends, we could also do this as business partners, and again, work spouses. Stu being the work wife. And I think it's critical, though, when you're working through these things. Like, business is not going to go, as you know, it's not going to go as planned. Real estate is never a deal is never going to go exactly as you think it's going to go. And so you have to be able to work through. In all our businesses, we've had challenges. In all our businesses, there have been things that we didn't anticipate. There's also been blessings that we didn't anticipate, but we discount those pretty quickly, right? The blessings we can look past. The down part is a little bit more difficult. But ultimately, if you agree, and what I love about your point of impact podcast is, if you agree that you want to make an impact that's greater than the sum of the partnership, and you want to do something that outlives you potentially, or is at least outsized to the men that we are, then that can really take you through a lot of those peaks and valleys, right? Because you're always focused on, am I making an impact? Is that my primary goal? And whatever the vehicle, doesn't matter, mastermind, real estate, whatever it is. If I'm always focused on purpose and impact, then inevitably you're gonna be, ideally, you're gonna be living a life of purpose. And then ideally, there's also that inevitable, um, the provision that comes from that as well, right? And so I think Stu and I, in our friendship and all that time working out, we used to swim every morning, all the conversations we had, and then the difficult conversations about a partnership and how we'd want to do that. It all boils down to, how do we make the biggest impacts in our families, in our homes, and with in our professional places, but also the men that we love and that we want to invest in.
that comes out quite a bit in your business, in the podcast. Of course, I'm sure in the mastermind, but it's about just living by a set of standards, core values, just like in the military. Right? They're plastered right above, on your website. The values that you won't compromise on. Uh, I uh, I'm definitely no stranger to failed partnerships and the ups and downs of real estate. Actually, due in large part to the partnership. For me, it wasn't unscrupulous partners, but just as bad, it was just picking a buddy that wasn't capable of holding up his end, and at the same time, I didn't hold up my end. So the partnership was doomed to fail. So uh, when you talk about your failed partnership, did it did it did it almost sour you to the business, sour you to partnerships? Regardless of the core values, you can take those values and direct them towards other endeavors. What was the decision factor there that led you to say that this was, lessons learned, and I can do it better, you know, with your best friend?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and this is something Stu and I have talked about. And what I would honestly say is that because Stu has had some other partnerships that haven't also haven't turned out exactly as planned, and there's always room for the perception of failure, and there's always room for bitterness if you feed that perception. And what I mean by that is, when you get burnt, you have a decision to make. You have a decision. You can say, okay, well, or not even burnt in any situation. I mean, you're a living, walking testament to this. When you get blown up, you have a decision to make. Do I give up? Do I allow bitterness in my loss to define my future? Or do I make a different decision and choose a different life and maybe start a delicious chocolate company and do real estate and incredible things and run in deserts, like do things that I personally think are dumb? And I'm just kidding, dude. These terrible running awesome things that you do. I don't think they're dumb. I can't do them, so I have to judge them. But ultimately, you have a decision to make, and so for me, relationship is like the top priority in my life, whether that's with my Lord and Savior, whether my faith, whether that's with my friends, my family. It's a top priority. So I personally take those things and chalk them up as that was just. I also take responsibility. Did I really do diligence on this person? Were we really aligned? No, we weren't. That's on me too. That's my fault. And so as Stu and I dig in, I have chosen this partnership with Stu. And it's something that we both enjoy. And it's something that's hard and has to be cultivated. But I enjoy all of that. And yes, he could be a pain in my butt and there could be bitterness there. Or there can be like, hey, dude, how can I be a better friend to you? How can I be a better business partner? How can I take responsibility for these things and we grow closer together? And so that's how I look at it. There's always a decision to make. And so for me, I leaned more into my relationship with Stu and our partnerships when those other partnerships went poorly. And now I'm very, very protective of any partnerships I make. Like it is like there's a courting process that goes on before we decide to do a deal.
Were there any growing pains taking the friendship into the professional realm?
Yes. Yes, and yes. Yeah, it's interesting the journey that we've been on. As David alluded to, there are days where we don't like each other very much. We love each other, we respect each other, but there are days where I'm angry at him. There are days when he is angry at me. Um, but we've had those hard conversations prior to making the decision to go into business together, where we knew what we would do in these situations. We knew what we would do if David gets an opportunity to go do some other business venture that I wasn't invited to go do. We knew what we would do if we have a real estate project and it requires for us to take money out of our own pockets. So, our investors don't lose money. And so we had these hard conversations prior to even making the decision to go into business together. And I think that is paramount. The other piece of it is um, we knew each other so well from our days of living together every single day for 4 years straight, and then continuing to talk afterwards. David was shortly thereafter in the hospital after my daughter was born in Italy. Our families know each other. Like we are very intimate with each other. We know like all of our faults, right? I heard one time that friendship is um, knowing each other fully and loving each other anyways. Like I know David's faults to a
But
T,
there's only like
but I
two of
love him
them, to
anyways
be
for it,
fair. There's only
right?
two, right, that you
So
have to
are
keep
there hard
track of.
days? Maybe three, maybe four, maybe 24. Um, but I joke, but yeah, Aaron, there are hard days. There are hard days where like, I go cold shoulder on him and don't talk to him for for 2 days, and then he calls me out on my BS, and then we make out over hiking. No, kidding, but we go mountain bike riding or snowboarding, and we talk it all out, and come back to where we are. So yeah, there's challenge in doing business with your best friend. There's challenge with doing business with family. There's a lot of challenges in that, but there's
Yeah,
also a lot of
it's a
blessings in it.
double-edged sword, right? I mean, you can't fire your mom, and but you know each other well enough that you can be honest and like you said, call them out on their BS. Uh, and what you were talking about before, working out these scenarios ahead of time is like creating a good SOP for the business and friendship. What's going to happen if we have a disagreement? Well, here's the process we'll go through, and that comes from experience. It comes from a lifetime of friendship. It reminds me of a recent post in one of the real estate group, Facebook groups, where somebody was asking about uh, it was allowing late rent, partial rent from one of their tenants as a problem tenant. And I said, you gotta hold that's got to be tantamount, right? You cannot accept late payments, put it into the lease, and then oh no, it was quarterly inspections, walkthroughs, and didn't want to, invade privacy. I said, it's your property, and that you need to know what's in there. And the contract says that you have to hold up your end of that as a landlord. That means you need to make sure that you're providing the best, uh, structure, the best dwelling that you possibly can for this tenant, and they're holding up their end. So it's like good, was it strong fences make good neighbors, and these understandings, yeah, make good partnerships. Put it in the contract, put it in your SOP, talk it out, and it seems like you guys do. You guys are, I'm guessing, talk constantly with each other about, on the mic, off the mic, within your mastermind. Um, it's great to have that kind of person. Stuart, was it you in a recent episode? You were talking about a friend of kind of a distant acquaintance type friend who called you up about just kind of unloading on you, dumping some emotional baggage, and you said, I'm not your guy. You need your guy." Uh, it's a close friend that you can really bounce those things off of. What's that about? What do you mean, your guy?
Yeah, I'll take it. It was somebody. It's fascinating too, because before this we hit record. I had done a post this morning. Stu did a post yesterday about appropriate age for kids to have cell phones, and then I followed up on that today, and kind of shifted the focus on the responsibility from the kids and the impacts on them to us as parents, right? And why that made me think of it is one of the guys responded, "Screens take souls." Like that was his response. And I've not responded yet, but I thought about that. And I'm like, well, that's not really true, because I'm assuming a lot of the positive content we consume and people we meet on LinkedIn is through a screen. So like it can't be that that soul taking it. And to your point, the conversation was prompted with this gentleman via LinkedIn, and it was someone I had known years and years ago in high school. We hadn't talked forever, and he just was going through a hard time. And so I called him, and I would not have known that if not for LinkedIn. So I reached out. I'm like, "Hey, dude, here's my number. Call me." And or better yet, give me your number and I'll call you. I'll take the responsibility off of you and put it on me. I'll call you. And I called him. We had this great conversation. But that, to your point, Aaron, at the end of the conversation, I was like, look, dude, like you have to have this. You have to have, I'm not the guy. You're in Texas. I'm here. I'm not your guy. But you have to be so intentional with finding those people. And here's the other side of this. A lot of times when we talk about responsibility, a lot of us just we push off the responsibility of friendship, and we heard this the other day on a guest that we had. He describes friendship as it's not flowers blooming. It's not something it's more like a woodworking project, right? And why I think that's relevant is a lot of us sit back and we wait, and that includes in our relationship. So like I'm very much like, hey, if there's some issues, we need to address it now. Stu is more like, hey, if there's some issues, let's just bury our feelings deep inside and just don't talk about it forever. And so, and I'm joking, he'll bring things to me too, right? But I think it's critical, even in a 25-year best friendship, you have to be willing to step out of your comfort and be like, hey, dude, let's talk about this. In your marriage, you have to be willing to step out of just the letting things kind of lay and have that conversation. Well, if you also have to do that if you want to be friend, if you want to make friends, like you have to put the effort out there to do that too. Be the person that you want to be around. And so I think, to fully answer your question, I was telling him very intentionally to not create any kind of reliance on our relationship unless we built a relationship and that was what we agreed to, but not to be a builder. I was not a shoulder to continuously come to. I was encouraging him to get out and make friends so that he could have a shoulder to walk next to, shoulder to shoulder with another dude and have real conversations because I was missing in his life. And I think all of us could really, really stand, especially us dudes. Women are way better at it than we are, but especially us dudes, like we have to be so intentional with our friendships because it's a beautiful thing to have, and it's a death sentence to not have. Literally, that's what the data shows. And so that's part of the, you talk about impact. If I could encourage guys and show them, hey, having friends is really, really awesome. It's fun. It's super dope. And it also could save your life. Like that's impact, right? And I want dudes to have those kind of relationships and to grow into those things. And then ultimately, maybe those things also grow into partnerships through their intentionality. And maybe they start businesses and maybe they start making different impacts that they never thought they could because they wound themselves with another person.
It seems to be a recurring theme about intentional friendship. It doesn't, strong friendships, relationships, they don't just happen, right? You've got to put the effort in to building those relationships, those connections. Same thing with marriage and, love, being an intentional partner to your spouse. And of course, parenthood. Ugh, I just inadvertently made the connection, kinetic man. Uh, but it's action, right? It's doing the job. You can't just show up and expect it to happen on its own. You got to live the role, and that. Yeah, I think it was you guys who mentioned recommended a book I loved was intentional fatherhood, uh, and the
Yeah, The
intentional
Intentional
father.
Father by
Yeah,
John Tyson.
and I loved the uh, it was the rite of passage, the ritual of teaching a son to become, go from boy to man. But that's an intentional teaching act from the father passed down to the son. And I actually love the idea of the ritualized rite of passage. By the way, do you guys do that? Have you participated in any of those?
I plan to. My kids are still um, younger, so the book recommends starting that rite of passage at age 13. And my daughter's 9 and my son is 6. So it's in my the back pocket there to plan for that when they become a little bit older. But yeah, it's a fantastic book, fantastic idea. And there's a few other things that I plan on doing similar. Trying to really be intentional about teaching my kids specific things that my parents never taught me. Um, doing intentional Bible study with my kids. We have a podcast guest coming up that has a full blown annual year long curriculum and plan to do Bible study with children. And so, I plan on doing that. So yeah, there's a lot of things that we have put into place, and a lot of it um, comes from conversations that we have inside of our men's mastermind group, the Kinetic Man, about just that, taking action and being kinetic, being intentional, putting things on the calendar, because we can't just let life happen to us, right? We have to make and take action.
Tell me more about the mastermind. What was the intention behind it? What's the uh, is this a local thing? Is it a nationwide, virtual, in person, and um, just expand on that a little bit.
Yeah. Um, I'll try to make a long story short, but back it up a few years when David and I were peak in the real estate business, the turnkey business. We were flipping 40, 50 houses a year, all while we were still active duty Navy. David was the commanding officer of a cyber command. I was the executive officer of a large Navy Reserve unit in Denver, Colorado. And we were busy. We were waking up early in the morning to do real estate. We were going to lead our Navy jobs, doing some real estate probably in between, and then coming home, doing more real estate, being on phone calls, raising capital, social media, dealing with tenants, dealing with property managers, all the stuff, right? And it got to be too much. It was a roller coaster every single day. And we said we were doing all of this for the family. We said we were, doing it to all the buzzwords, right? In the real estate world: financial freedom, passive income, uh, wealth generation, leaving a legacy, all these reasons that we said. And, we were in mastermind groups primarily about real estate and investing. And everyone said the same thing. We were doing it all for the family. But we took a look in the mirror, and I was the heaviest I'd ever been. I was an emotional wreck. My wife and I had a terrible relationship. Not terrible, but it was not a good relationship. My kids didn't really know who I was because all they saw was dad with a cell phone in front of my face, talking to investors and clients and property managers. And we weren't having fun anymore. And we were about to transition out of the Navy, and we were scared. And so we both kind of said to ourselves, like, we need to make some major changes in our life. We need to get back and actually do the things that we say are important, like pay attention to our family, like pay attention to our faith, like pay attention to our health. And we pivoted the entire real estate business in 2021. We stopped flipping houses. Everything in our pipeline we kept for ourselves. We just put it into our own portfolio. And we took a hard look, and we laid out. You've probably seen them before. Some people call it the wheel of life, but we just laid out ideas and principles that we said were important to us, like family, like faith, like health, and we came up with 10 major categories. And we knew that we needed men in our lives to hold us accountable to that, to becoming better husbands, better fathers, better friends, better Christian men in the community. And we invited 10 men to just meet weekly on Zoom, and, kind of church small group style concept, all online. I would say 90% of them were either former military, now veterans, or still active duty military. A lot of them were entrepreneurs. A lot of them were real estate investors. And we just asked to meet once a week on Zoom and talk through all this stuff. Be vulnerable, be honest. There was laughter, there's tears. And we did that for 18 months straight through the transition of leaving the military into civilian life. And it was the most impactful, powerful, purposeful thing that we did. And we realized that men, specifically middle-aged men with families, that have poured so much of their identity into their career and their jobs, but realize they want something better. They want more purpose, and they want to live out more than just making money, to really focus there. And so we started a business out of it, and we called it the Kinetic Man Mastermind. We have a podcast that is surrounding the theme of that. But it's group cohort online meetings for an hour once a week, and then we do in-person retreats. We have a lot of local people here in Colorado that are in the mastermind, so we do a lot of in-person local stuff on a regular basis because, like we talked about earlier, friendship, shoulder to shoulder, in person, doing fun stuff is really, really important to us. So that's kind of the genesis of it. David, did I miss anything?
That sounds great.
Oh no, I was gonna say, Stu didn't. You nailed it, and I think, um, you, Aaron, as you were talking, the kinetic connection, kind of the kinetic man idea hit you. That's really, I would say, in a nutshell, what we're all about is moving from talk. There's a lot of talk, right? And you can hear so many people's opinions on so many different platforms and so many different venues, and that's great. We're about action, right? Like, I want to actually, the idea of fostering our children into adulthood, like that's great. I love that idea. Love the philosophy behind it, and I love all the thought. Right? What are you doing? Like, what does it look like? Like, no kidding. And even better, like, you specifically, Stu, like, show me what you're doing. Right? Like, let's not talk about it. It's great. Like, show me what you're doing. And that kinetic aspect of it has really been life changing for us, and for a lot of the dudes in the group are doing things they never thought. And here's a kicker. Nobody had to become a millionaire to do these things. Nobody had to change their life significantly to do these things. It has been significantly life changing, but it's like, hey, I'm going to be intentional about taking my kid on a date and see what happens. Right. I mean, even things small things, like, I wouldn't have normally probably thought about Stu's post and then turning that into a conversation with my daughter. That's what happened this morning. And I learned a lot about her and some things that she's doing, her thoughts on social media and cell phones and all these things that are big topics. Well, I did something, right? I said, I'm going to take this opportunity and I'm going to ask her a question. I'm going to listen, and then we're going to have an open dialogue about it. Like, that in and of itself can be absolutely life-changing for some dads and some daughters. And so it's not that hard, but a lot of us have just never heard, like, I can do this. I can just take my kids out to ice cream before dinner and make it, like, super memorable because it's, like, so backwards. I can be the dad that like skip school with my kids to take them on a skiing day, or take them to a whatever. It doesn't matter. Like, that's super memorable stuff, dude. Like, if my parents would have done that with me, it just would have stuck. And it's not like they're missing 1 day of school. Like, big deal. But what's the opposite of that? They're getting to spend an entire day with their dad. Like, that's pretty freaking cool. So it's little stuff like that, right? It's just little things like that, actions that we take that are really the entire intent of that action is impact, 100%. Like, how do I maximize this time and maximize my impact? Okay, we're going to skip school today and we're going to go eat ice cream and watch a movie and do something like just completely fun. Like, let's do it. Cool. Easy day.
Are you guys still doing the family board meeting thing?
Yeah. Yep.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
I failed to do it last quarter with my oldest, and it's difficult to get either or both of the twins out just by myself. They're 5 years old, so just a 5-year-old and a blind deaf dad outside can get dangerous.
That's
But
awesome.
I love the concept. I love the concept, and we still to what you were saying is that that action. I'm a good father. How are you a good father? I'm being a good husband. How are you showing up? And not just saying it. It's like I can do that, or I am this. But I am. It's more about I'm doing rather than I'm being. Yeah, so I totally agree. And I love the idea of that wheel of life where you break down the different aspects of your life so that each one of them gets individual attention. Um, when you're on your calls or your in-person meetings, is this s- kind of what you break down? People, members give their challenges and gather tips and hacks on how to yeah, face those challenges or how to do something a little bit better than before.
Yeah, so we kind of came up with a structure. We call it the real paradigm. We get real, REAL, on our calls. So we take a topic, say it's family, and week one is reflection week. It's the R of real, and David and I have come up and we asked some hard questions. We asked them hard questions for them to truly reflect on what family means to you individually, and what does success look like to you individually for your family, because could be very different depending on who you are, where you came from, your background, your story. So you come up with that definition of success for family, and you reflect on these hard questions. So that's week one. There's some very in-depth, deep conversations in that. Week two is execute, and so we come back and we say, hey, based on your definition of success in your family, based on the answers to the questions that we asked you, what can you do today to execute, to become better in this area of your life? And we have it, people write it down, we talk about those. And so that's where like all these different ideas come from. And I tell you, every single call, there's somebody says something life-giving, and it makes me change the way I do things, right? So, we execute on week two. Week three, we hold each other accountable. So we actually assign accountability partners, and we expect the accountability partners to talk to each other throughout the week, throughout the month. And so we come back on week three and we ask, hey, how'd it go? Like, did you talk to your accountability partner? What did you guys talk about? What did you do? What did you not do? Was it hard? Why did you not do it? What happened? And so we just kind of talk through like the action steps, the execution week, how it went, what'd you do? And again, there's some life-giving stuff that happens. And then week four is live. We live it out. How do we not just focus this month on it, but how do we live it out on our calendars for the rest of our life? Like, what does that look like? What are you putting on your calendar to be intentional? How does this become a habit on a regular basis to form you into a different type of person, to form you into a better husband, a better dad, a better friend? And so we just talk that out. And through those conversations, we have a lot of Socratic questions that have a lot of different opinions, and it just makes you think differently. And you come out a better man for it, because you're intentional, because you're taking action, and you're seeing the world a little bit differently before you
The
came in.
quality of your life depends on the quality of the questions you're asking, right?
That's right. It's absolutely, and the quality of the people that you surround yourself with.
And so, how have your lives changed since starting the mastermind?
Yeah, it's interesting. And I think until recently, I personally hadn't seen how much my life had truly changed. And so we had made a decision. We brought in some coaches into the mastermind, and we made a decision to for us to focus on building it as a business, and not be in it and facilitating it. Uh, that only lasted a couple of months because we realized we were like, man, like I'm actually missing out, and the man that I'm becoming is the trajectory has plateaued being outside of the group, like being focused on trying to bring this message to more men. And so we had a lot of hard conversations. We brought in a business coach, and ultimately what we came out of it was like, dude, things do have to change structurally. We have to pay attention to the business aspect. All that good stuff is great. But as men, we are growing so profoundly by being in the group, by facilitating the group, by being with these men. And so, for me, I would just say my level of I'm not an amazing dad, right? And I'm not an amazing human being, and I don't think I'm not anywhere near where I want to be. But what I will tell you that has changed for me drastically, and it has also improved my joy and happiness to levels I've never experienced, is I am extremely intentional. So I'll just give you one example. There's a small group of us within the mastermind who we fast every week. It's a very intentional practice that we do to grow spiritually and to just to fast, right? And one of the guys wrote before this call, he's like, "Man, today is rough. Today is a rough one for me." And I wrote, "Dude, uh, same here. And if it wasn't for this group, I would have probably already have broken my fast, and I would not have. I've broken my commitment." And that seems very simple, but when you have all these different little areas of your life that you're improving in and becoming more like the man that you want to be, because this group of dudes are not only challenging you with new different thoughts and ways to be better, but also challenging you to actually do it, man, it's really hard to measure that, right? And so the intentionality and the way I think through even that conversation this morning, that was prompted yesterday. That seed was planted yesterday by Stu saying something. But then I ruminated on it, and then I intentionally decided I want to have this conversation as part of a family thing. Like I would not have done that a year ago. I definitely wouldn't have done that 18 months ago. And so it's all these little areas that are building on themselves in what I will just cover as an umbrella as intentionality that has been hugely transformational for me. And it's hard to measure that.
Yeah. Uh,
Let me add, Aaron. Let me add a few thoughts of just things we've seen happen that weren't because of what we're doing, but more of just curating the environment and curating the opportunity for people to change and to grow. Um, just a few examples, and all these men have given us permission to talk about them. I won't give names, but one of the men in the group, his father left when he was 5 years old. Never knew him, didn't know him growing up. He's now 40, and he within the last couple of years, he has had the courage to find his father through his grandmother, reach out to his father in a letter. His father replied to that letter, and they have now started to, in the very beginnings of forming a relationship with his dad again, after not knowing him for 35 years. That's one example. Another man was his family was practicing Catholics growing up, and as soon as he left to go out to college, he quit all religion. Didn't want to be a part of it, knew nothing of it, and then just recently decided that he needed to look back into it again. His wife had been wanting to go to church for a long, long time, and he finally came about to decide to take his family to a Christian church, and then enroll his kids in it. And now they're actually started a family Bible study group in his area. Um, Another man lost 40 pounds and is off all of his diabetes medications. Another man decided to start tithing because he was so fearful of giving his money away. And now he's tithing more than 10% and increasing that annually due to his business starting to thrive even more so. Go figure. So it's just, some really, really cool things are happening that in the world of social media and marketing and investing and real estate and all these things like may not look successful, but I think those are really pretty cool success stories.
If I joined the group, do you think I could start driving again
I,
too?
I don't doubt it. Yeah, I don't doubt it. I think
Maybe, just maybe.
Sorry, I misheard you.
uh,
Like that's a miracle. No, that's incredible. That in fact, that does seem like a bunch of a litany of miracles there. Um, Finding your estranged father, losing all that weight and getting off medications, um, and really, uh, yeah, tithing. Giving. Being of service, giving of your own treasure to community. I mean, that's the kind of influence, the kind of impact that we all want to have, and it does come with that tribe, comes with our community. Um, we are social, creatures. We are influenced by the others around us. So the better the influence, the better we become. What what if somebody's feeling lost, feeling in a rut, maybe a bit isolated? What are some of the things locally that hey man, could do?
yeah, I'll tell you one of the most powerful things that this group offers is I've got like a little Rolodex of like, all right, I'm gonna call this dude. I'm having some marriage issues. I'm gonna give this guy a call because we've created a dialogue around this specific issue because he's in this place. Oh, this guy is struggling with some weight things, or this guy's thriving with physical health. I'm gonna give that guy a call and you know kind of pick his brain, see what he's doing, and help to maybe it's something I can grow from. There's all these different topics and there's these different dudes, and my point to that is it wasn't always that way, right? It required a little bit of effort, and local can mean a lot of things. It can be an online mastermind. It can be and you create a local with your computer and a group of dudes from all over the world. And you create relationship that way. It can be local proximity wise. We have those guys here. Stu and I have another chat within our group chat that's called TCAM Colorado, and it's just the guys that are local, and that's where we put out stuff that we're going to do in person. But at the end of the day, this stuff didn't happen. This has been a culmination, and it's continuing to grow. But it's been a culmination of 2 years of effort, and so I think the key is just starting, man. It's just starting, and if it's cultivating friendships and how you do that, you surround yourself, you find something you're interested in, you join a group. We're big believers in paying for, like Stu and I will admit it straight up. We're happy to pay for friends, right? You pay to be part of a group to get around like-minded individuals, and you short circuit that whole process. Like, that's awesome. Do that. That's what a mastermind's all about. And that's why we run a mastermind. So I just think it requires you to step outside yourself and your discomfort. And I'll tell you, man, I put I'll do a post and put my number on LinkedIn and be like, just call me. If you're reading this, call me if you need somebody. Like, pick up the phone and call, right? Have the courage. If someone offers, have the courage to take them up on that offer. And you never know what could grow out of that relationship, that conversation. And so just taking those opportunities to get real with people and to get in real relationship is something we're missing, and it's a skill that is atrophying, and we need to bring it back, right? Like that's a big thing. I'm teaching my kids, like, hey, go talk to that person, talk to that stranger. It's okay, right? Go do that. Like refine that skill. You might meet your new best friend, and that's just how it works.
Yeah, that socializing,
Well, it's
interpersonal
vulnerability.
communication. I mean, and you are right. It's a skill where
Yeah.
it's dying, and due in large part to uh, isolating ourselves with the screens, the phones, uh, the tablets, and TVs. That's a scary thing. We were mentioning kids with phones. My oldest is 13. And of course, everybody in his grade has a phone. Right? Every single one of his friends has it, which isn't at all true. But from my son's perspective, it is, and that's what scares me because I don't see, I can hear the lack of communication skills and the lack of attention, uh, in his buddies when hell, his buddies will be over at the house and I won't even know it because they're just sitting on the couch individually playing on their phones. Why are you guys even hanging out? Um, that's a pretty scary, very, difficult challenge that we're facing nowadays. So for kids, for adults, uh, you're talking about just getting out and talking to people for real, actually having conversations. Uh, so for those, what kind of advice do you have for the parents who are afraid of the screens on their the kids are having nowadays?
Create some rules, create some rules around it, right? And set some boundaries, and force, you know, my kids are still young. David's just starting this journey, so we're not there yet for phones. But I, I'm thinking through this. I'm reading a book right now called The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. It's fantastic. It's incredibly interesting and scary at the same time. Highly recommend reading it. But I having a lot of hard conversations with my kids and setting some rules. And someone else had made a comment on a post that I did. Said that they like created a contract, like wrote out a contract with some guidelines and some rules and responsibilities around the phone use. I thought it was great. So that probably could be in the equation for me. But I think more than anything, uh, also just modeling, as parents, back to kind of taking responsibility ourselves. I should make a rule for myself. I do have a rule. I have it on my calendar from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. It says, put the phone away, put the phone down, dude. And I should be modeling to my kids that I'm not going to have the phone in front of my face. Right. And I'm going to be present with them. I'm going to go throw the baseball outside with my son after school and not be staring at my phone. I'm going to sit at the dinner table without a phone, right? And model what that looks like for them so that when they then have a phone later on in life, they'll know what to practice because lessons are caught, they're not taught. And so, for me, that's where it's at. And then also back to the communication piece, showing again, modeling to them what vulnerability looks like. Talking to them about when I make mistakes, talking to them about how I messed up, apologizing to them, and then also showing them that I can reach out and say hello to another dad at the playground that I've never met before and start a conversation. And say hello to the gym dad, right? Say hello a lot more and encourage them to do the same thing and introduce themselves to another little girl on the playground and ask them to play, right? So I think those are the things that we can intentionally do to model
That's
for our children.
that's something I think I heard you say. Whenever you said on your show not too long ago, something about character being caught, not taught. And that just kind of reminded me of it, where they're going to model your behavior, and it's yeah. There's setting up restrictions, setting up the rules and the standards, and say live by this, and that's the do as I say. But you also need to show, do as I do.
Yeah, and I would say I'd add one more thing. Don't be afraid. So I recently found out to my daughter's friend. She's 13. I'm the strictish fun dad. Oh, I don't know what that means, but I find out I'm the strictest fun dad, and I think where that comes from is it is okay in our homes to also model to other people's kids, and what I mean by that is, when my kids have sleepovers or a bunch of kids come over, there's a phone rule for all kids because it's my house. So there's a phone rule for all kids. Hey, everybody put your phones here. And we even bought extra like plugs and stuff because all these kids have Apple and I can't stand Apple, but they have their own little lightning plug. Well, they've gone away from that, but some of these kids have older phones. My daughter has an older phone. And so we bought some extra plugs so they could plug their phones in and whatever. And I also, dude, I'm big on pleases and thank yous. Like I will not serve. I happily serve other people's kids. I love grilling the burgers and making dinners. I love all that. But you don't get served at my house till you say please, and you're not excused until you say thank you. If your last name is Gutierrez or not, right? But and it's not a rude. I don't do it rudely. I just bring their attention to it and emphasize, hey, like this is normal human behavior. I want you guys all to experience normal human behavior. And so there's certain standards that are in my house that the kids actually appreciate. And some of the kids are like they take a little longer to come around, but if they come here often, they start to pick it up, and it's cool, right? It's cool. It's cool that you don't just get unfettered access, and it's cool that you say please and thank you, and it's cool to like do a lot of fun things, but also to be just a normal contributing human being, right? And to learn some of those lessons because they're just going away. The number of kids that don't say please and thank you is absolutely mind blowing to me. And I threaten my kids, with their life, like, dude, if you go outside this house and you act, and they're like, Dad, I would never. And I'm like, okay, thank God. but but the point is, you can also be who you are and have these standards and stand up for them and do it in a way that is edifying and gracious and loving. And it's good for the kids to have that too, right? Even if they're not yours.
Absolutely. Well, gentlemen, I can hear my kids have returned from daycare because they're just banging around in the background. Uh, but I really appreciate you coming on the show. I want uh, our audience to know how to find you if they want to learn more about Storehouse 310, about the Kinetic Man Mastermind. Just reach out and get to know you guys a little bit more. And of course, follow your podcast.
Yeah, Aaron, thanks for the opportunity, man. This has been a really fun conversation. Like you said, we have a podcast. It's called the Kinetic Man Podcast. Aaron has graced us with his presence on our show. It was a fantastic episode. Our website is thekineticman.com. You can check that out. We have a really cool newsletter called The Manifesto that you can sign up for. It's just bi-monthly and just give us some really cool actionable items. You can go to thekineticman.com/newsletter to sign up for that. And lastly, we were talking about having conversations with our kids. One of the things that I thought was really fun to do within the group is we came up with just a long list of questions to ask to engage in conversation. And I don't know about you, Aaron, but like I'll ask my kid, like, "Hey, how'd the day go?" And it's like, "Good," or "Fine." "Hey, what'd you do at school?" "Nothing. Played on the playground." Right? You have these like super simple answers. Well, we came up with 100 questions, a list of 100 questions that you can sit at the dinner table and ask and just engage with your children. And they're really fun questions, really get some good conversations going. We'd love to give that to your audience for free. If they just send us an email, they can send an email to takeaction@thekineticman.com. Takeaction@thekineticman.com. Ask for the free 100 list of questions, and we'll send that to you.
It's funny. So you mentioned asking questions, and I know you had Adam Labar on your show recently. Uh, Not to steal the last word, but one of the things he likes to do on his show is uh, ask for a video, of their, the dad's kids. One of the questions being, "What does your dad do? What do you think your dad does for a living?" And we asked the twins, the 5-year-olds, and one of them said, "Daddy runs on the treadmill." So uh, it's about right. Anyways, I love asking the kids questions because they have the most honest answers, and I really appreciate. You know, that's a great tip for anybody listening. I'm uh, definitely recommend subscribing to the Kinetic Man podcast. You guys have great conversations with your incredible guests, and not to mention, just among each other, a glimpse at the kind of conversations, the real conversations you guys are having among each other. So, thank you for sharing a little bit of that insight with me today.
Thank you so much for having us on the podcast. A lot of fun. Always love chatting with you, and keep crushing, man. You're an inspiration to us in real estate, getting things done. I've not delved into making chocolate yet, but maybe that'll be on the list as well of things that I can add to my repertoire. I know my kids would love that. So I appreciate you, appreciate and dude, your podcast, is awesome, man. You're almost episode 60 at this point for the season. That's awesome, dude. Super excited for you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you very much, and one more time, thanks for being on the show. I appreciate it.